is US Comics Cast. I am Charlie. He is Casey. Together we are US Comics Cast. Casey, happy Comic Book Day observed.
And happy Comic Book Day to you and to everyone listening and watching today. As always, we are brought to you by Bad Mary Band and Sergeant Finesse Gaming. If you haven't done so already, please hit that comment section like your only passions are your hog, your cut, and your best guy, pal.
That's you, John. You look so healthy and refreshed and
Don't
tall.
I look good?
And you got just such beautiful milky white skin. See,
the anti-tanning bed.
Well, I don't know if you've ever noticed on the show, but John and I, we look like we're the same skin tone until these lights go on. Then he goes up about 75 white boy shades. He becomes basically a vampire from one of those sparkly movies. My brother, my dear brother, he says, can't do the show Wednesday this week. I got stuff to do. I'm like, all right, brother. He goes, we'll do it Thursday. I'm like, all right. I wake up Wednesday. He's like, I'm not doing it Thursday either. The best I could do is give you a Casey. And I'm like, sold. That sounds amazing. So thank you, Casey, for joining us. The biggest Rocky fan I know. If
John and I
if my brother and I share 99% of our opinions, that 1% is made up in the way that you and I watch movies. Casey, you're like my movie twin without us having the same opinions. We use the same language. We went to like 2 film schools that disagree on everything. Yes. So when we have cross-pollination, we just wind up telling everyone that they're like foolish and insane if they didn't adore Monkey Man. Like if a person even questions the choices made, we're like, did we really need kung fu transgenders? Like, yeah, we did.
We do.
Do you not pay attention? Do you not know what cinema is? But Casey, I know for me, it's been a big week. A movie that we won't get into, but Frozen Empire finally came out on DVD. So if nothing else, you have to appreciate that I have 1 through 4 now on the actual physical media shelf next to their VHS grandfather. Watched all the behind the scenes, got my fill of cold in this beautiful hot New York weather. But for me, it really was a like kind of replay sort of week movie wise. I like rewatched Point Break. It's been a long and short week all at once, but mine was kind of filled with nostalgia. How about you? Did you see anything new this week? Did you throw in some videos? Were you not able to enjoy any cinematic goodness?
Well, I will tell you that the last 2 days I was a little preoccupied with New York Mets baseball, as I normally am. So to all the Yankee fans out there, sorry.
I have to go I haven't eaten like chicken in probably like at least a year and a half, because my brother has chosen to go the meatless lifestyle. So I was like, I'll follow you. It's easier to go shopping that way. I may have to go get some chicken nuggets at McDonald's because Grimace put a smile on my face. I mean, unprecedented.
It is the greatest thing to happen to the Mets since like David Wright. This guy makes me so happy.
The fucking whooping that we put on the Yankees, a team that as of this moment is not a little bit better than us. We're basically playing like AA ball by comparison. Like we by all, let's put Grimace aside. No one, you might love Rocky more than Sly himself. You love the Mets more than Mr. Met loves Mrs. Met. I do. I really love them as well, but it is not comparable. Like I love the Mets the way I love like fresh sheets. Like I love them. It's a huge part of my life. But when I don't have crisp sheets, I'm not like my whole fucking day is ruined and I'm gonna murder a toddler.
What has it been like? As much as I hate the Mets, that's the thing. Well, it's a tough way to live. But I don't want to turn this into a sports podcast. I know that's not what this is, but I'm just gonna say.
I mean, it is what I pitched for years, though.
The last couple of weeks have been fucking awesome. It's been
For
awesome.
those who don't know, you live at Citi Field, basically. Season ticket holder. You have been. You were beat up at your bachelor party. We went to a Mets game. They got clobbered. You were beat up, I believe, the day you got married. I believe the Mets lost. It has not been a friendly year, and suddenly a purple amorphous blob of a creature shows up, and everything changed. And the
God works in mysterious ways, my friend.
I love to see it, but I gotta tell you, man. I love the Mets. I said that. Know what I love more than the Mets? I'm happy because of the Mets, Casey. This whole time I've been like, are they going to get to 500 for my friend Casey?
Damn straight, baby.
Such terrible, like my codependency was showing because I was just like, I hope Casey's happy. Like it was as if we had broken up and you met someone new, and I'm like, I hope they take care of him.
Take care of my boy.
But I need you to be honest. The highlight of your year so far. How I won't ruin a happy relationship. But how close is the Yankee spanking and a 500 Mets to the wedding day?
Look,
how are we talking about?
Me. She's in the bedroom hiding right now. I don't think she'll ever hear this. Let's be honest. Yesterday and Tuesday, they were like here. The wedding is like right here. Okay, this has been pretty fucking great. I love you, honey. You can hear me. I love you. I love you.
That is amazing. Christian joining us on Facebook. Christian, what's up, buddy? So the Mets obviously taking up a lot of your time. I gotta ask you, and then we'll fully shift into kind of more of the nerdy sphere. But I've been actually dying to ask you this question for a long time. I was waiting for a moment like this to ask you. If you had to choose the fictionalized, based on a true story, Mets story, do you go the obvious route of the 69 Mets? Do you tell the Mike Piazza story? I'm giving you as much money as you want. I'm letting you create the film. We want a Mets motion picture. Could be any version that you want. Could be about David Wright coming up like that. It just needs the Mets money behind it. So we need to make sure there's a decent percentage of Mets logos. But what would you make? Gun to your head. Doesn't have to be well thought out. What is the definitive Mets story for you?
Wow. That's a great great
It's a good question. If this was a first date, I'm getting some. You're like, I'm at least gonna make out with him in his car.
No,
like,
no doubt.
That's a solid question.
I think if I absolutely had to do it, I think it would be about the Met fan, because I think we are so passionate, and we have been just beaten to a bloody pulp, but we always come back stronger. So I think I would actually focus on the fan, because I think that's the most interesting thing about them. Because you could, like, if you followed me around, like if we did like the whole when Linklater did Boyhood, and they followed that kid from when he was like 7 until like a teenager. Imagine if they had a camera following me from when I was 6 up until now. That's a fucking movie.
That is also,
people would be like, how is this guy still alive? Yeah, they'd be like, how's this guy not had like 15 coronaries already?
Yeah,
it would be really interesting to see those ebbs and flows and those mountain highs and those valley lows. I think that's what I would do.
I immediately want to fictionalize it, though. I want a kid. I want a generation, like a Mets household, and you start with the 69 win, like a little kid.
Okay.
And then it's him older and his kid, then him older and his. I think you get like 3-4 generations in plausibly.
Or if you make
I think that would be so much fun.
If you make him a little bit older in 69, then his kid could really enjoy 86. And then maybe that grandkid
is he a ball? Does it start with he's a ball boy?
Oh, that'd be freaking.
Do we make it like you put him in the uniform,
awesome.
a young
guy?
I think that could be amazing.
His own bat. He has his own Wonder Boy, that kind of thing. The
family has the ball boy jersey hanging always in the house.
That'd be sweet.
That's like carries on, gets fucking older. We're gonna make this fucking movie, and the truth is, if no part of you thinks that we can't beat the Drew Barrymore, I kind of think it's a hit, even though it's about Boston. But what that wasn't called Summer Catch. That's the one with Hottie McGee. What
Fever
was
Pitch.
the Red Sox Fever Pitch, which is a movie
Fever
I
Pitch.
rewatched this year because I genuinely think it's like Charm City.
But he leaves. He doesn't see them win the World Series because of Drew Barrymore. Sorry, that's not happening.
He doesn't.
I'm not out.
He doesn't see them winning the playoffs because that movie was filmed like we're going to lose anyway. But the World Series he's there for, which is really mixed messaging, in my opinion. Like, do you love it or not? Is this not a threesome situation?
There are certain rules, and that's just one of them. I'm not.
I know. I saw the contract you made your wife sign. But if you guys do not think we can at least, what was the name of the movie again? The Drew Barrymore one?
Fever Pitch.
If you don't think we can make a better movie than Fever Pitch, then you, like that chinless son of a bitch George Lucas, have one thing in common, and that's you're both liars. Why, Casey? Because Han shot first. Casey, put him up. Thank you for joining me.
There's Keith.
Yeah. Salud. Oh, it does not get smoother when John's not here. Casey, my beautiful Casey, we might be in the greatest era of television ever, right? I think the last 10 years, maybe the last 15 years, really whenever Steve Carell decided that The Office was a wise investment of his talent, as opposed to just doing a series of comedy movies like every comedic actor that preceded him, I feel like the landscape changed. And what started with The Office, which was, again, ultimately, relatively, no disrespect to the people who love it, a bit disposable. Like, The Office works so well because you can kind of put on any episode, even a bad season episode. You're going to get some smiles. You're going to get some laughs. You're going to fuck off. It's a very, very good version of something we had seen before. Then we got things like Heroes that were given incredible budgets. We got things like those fucking Dead People on an Island. The name just escaped me.
Lost.
That lost. Thank you. I was lost for a fucking second. And it brings us to what can only be described as like a bipolar week of premiere expensive fucking television. Sunday, House of the Dragon, season 2, episode 2. I fucking hate the Hightowers like they have spat upon my mother. Like the genuine rage I feel at these people. And for me, House of the Dragon season 2 not only is must watch, it's must rewatch. Every fucking Sunday, I rewatch the previous episode before I watch the current episode. Then during the week, I watch that current episode again to only watch it Sunday because, frankly, my life is pretty shallow and I have a lot of time to do fun shit. We did talk in the pre-show. You're caught up. What are your feelings thus far generally? We don't have to dive into the specifics, but how did you feel when we left off Game of Thrones? How did you feel when that torch got passed to House of the Dragon? How do you feel now that we're a couple episodes in?
I'll be honest with you. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed the last season of Game of Thrones for what it was. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed it. And I was ready to put it all to bed. I'm not a reader of the books, so I don't have all this pre-knowledge of what else there is and what should be happening and all this kind of stuff. I'm just watching a TV show. So excuse me. So when Thrones was over, I was okay with saying goodbye to it. This is something that you and I disagree on wholeheartedly. You're always
not reading.
Give me more.
Fuck reading.
More.
You and I.
No, reading.
You and I agree. Reading's bad. But for me,
don't read.
Kill that horse. Like I need that horse murdered. So it's refreshing to hear that you were like, even though this wasn't perfect, let's put it on the shelf.
I'm good. Like I'm less is more. I perfect something, make it great, and then let it go. That's how because I want to see more original stories. However, I know that there's so much source material, there's so much to pull from. I don't blame them from going to this well again, even though, to be honest, they're not going to the well. This is only the second show. So this is not Game of Thrones spinoff number 10. We're not getting a Avengers, on Disney Plus. I need a TV show about every side character in the history of mankind, that the quality dips and dips and dips. That's not what this is, at least not yet, thank God. So I didn't love the first season of Dragons. I didn't.
Really?
I enjoyed it. I did not love it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I thought there were flaws in it. I thought all the time jumps were very disorienting, and you weren't able to really connect with someone. However, now I'm in. They've got me now.
Beautiful.
I thought the pilot, or I shouldn't say the pilot, the premiere was really good, and I thought episode 2 was fantastic. Dare I say, I think this has been the best episode of the run of the show. I thought this episode was awesome.
There is something really interesting about being on a second episode of a season and being like, how the fuck do you, like, unless the rest of the season is all dragon on dragon combat, which it might be. I saw the preview for episode 3. Looks like some shit going down, you know what I mean? But you, again, like, hit the fucking nail on the head. This is a show that I think, especially people who sat through the first season, because the first season is like mother's milk for someone like my brother who knows the ins and outs of that story so well, who knows the kind of very much a textbook, like an accounting of events is what this is pulled from. It's not its own book. These are chapters from a fucking dense-ass book.
Right.
The fact that they're able to rev it up. I liked season 1. It sounds like considerably more than you did, but that's because I really disliked the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones, because I feel like they just completely fell off with everything that I loved about it. Because what I love about it is like no stake political drama, because like real life has real stake political drama. So I'm like, fuck that. We're counter programming the debates right now. Like that's how fucking
with
real
joy.
With fucking glee in my eyes, green light to go on or off so I can speak. That's a very specific reference to CNN's coverage, and I don't think anyone in this audience will get it. But fuck you, I'm not going to explain it. Google that shit. Season 2, though, is like what you do when you're ahead gambling. They're just like, fuck everybody. You know what, kid? Hey, little king, we're going to give you a whole scene. Enjoy this tasty scenery.
Yep.
Go for it. There's no way that they didn't shoot that 10 times. There's not a chance on fucking earth. There's not one version where he's screaming. There's not one version where he's muddling, because they found this a kid who I did not think had it in him to up that character so much, up to that fucking character so much. Season 2, episode 2 is fucking a miracle of television.
Incredible. Because what they've done, without getting into too much of a conversation, they've taken characters that you kind of already despised. You've made some of them you hate more, but now for the first time you've like turned, and I won't say who it is because, like I said, I don't want to get into a spoiler conversation, but there is a great scene where you're like, holy shit, I thought I hated this person. Now on their side. So the political intrigue, if you will, is actually interesting. It's not, it's not the Star Wars, Senate hearings. Like, this is actually interesting conversation and dialogue and plot.
What a fucking good reference, because Star Wars could have had space dragons. Like, there's a version of Star Wars where they're like, the blockade is being stopped by space dragons. And I would have been like, space dragons, motherfucker, let's go. Like, there's no reason that your intrigue can't have a side helping of humping and violence. Like, that's the magic formula, you goddamn fools. So much so it's the magic formula, you can fuck family members. And I'm going to be like, that's pretty fucked up, but it's also very interesting. And I don't think those actors are related. So I'm going to take some screenshots. Fucking a miracle of television. I will say we're at such a good stage of television itself. Fucking The Boys, season 4, episode 5, I think it is. Another tremendous episode of television. How's The Boys been this season for you?
It's interesting. I'm really enjoying about 65% of it.
Oh, interesting.
I really like, and I haven't watched today's yet because I have a job, whatever.
Nerd.
I'm I'm really enjoying the superhero satire. That I love. I love the Homelander stuff. I think it is so fascinating. He is incredible.
That
It's one
motherfucker's
of my
angry he hasn't won an award yet.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. However, and I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day, there's 33% of it that is so heavy-handed that I'm like, guys, I get it.
You know what, though? To be fair, Casey, and I mean this with love,
Go ahead.
some people are stupid.
Yeah, I
Like,
know that.
what I think is amazing about The Boys is there is kind of something for everyone. Because if you're smart, they're going to have you reevaluate the show. And again, without giving anything away, you want to talk about fucking bad guys. So you're like, they're out of line. But like, I get it. Homelander last week was one of the most justified, terrible acts I've ever seen in fiction.
I know.
It is like,
unbelievable.
I was in the elevator with Homelander being like, good job, buddy. Like, it's all
Yeah.
like, I get
They totally
fucked up.
deserve that, dude.
Totally fucking deserved it.
Yeah.
And as opposed to some people that I do think this season the show might be like, for the first time, a little bit talking down to people, is just because I think there was so much confusion on the heels of Gen V and season 3, where some people were like, well, no, this is either side you pick is the right side. I feel like the showrunners were like, what?
Yeah.
You think the Jewish actor we hired to play the Nazi sympathizer, you think maybe she's a good guy? I do think there was like a holy fuck. Like and the show continues it this season. They hired a lesbian who has whose pronouns are they them to play the most fucking like Jesus Americana bullshit artist of all time. It's not a subtle fucking show, but
no.
I think what I love about what you said is there is 60% for people who like don't need to be talked down to. I think there's a lot of story where you're like, oh, or the stuff that is ambiguous, I think is great. That's I again, part of the reason I kind of wanted to have this conversation first about The Boys is it is leading to kind of our full kind of breakdown and review of Bikeriders coming up in the next segment. But there's one more thing I did want to briefly bring up with you. And that's you have something that I don't have. It's not amazing height. It's not dashing good looks. It's not a magical voice that just makes all the women I call them, all the women cry. You have the ability to say no to something that'll hurt you. And when The Acolyte came out, you sent a text message to my brother and you said, am I watching this? And he wrote back like, nah, you probably won't like it. And you were like, all right. And you don't have that evil in you that would convince you, be like, well, I pay for Disney. Like my thing was I pay for Disney Plus. I will watch the fucking thing. And I spent 3 episodes like this. Fucking stupid Disney fucking, I hate you, George. I hate goddamn the prequel. This shit is just more prequel sequels. Why can't anyone just do Empire? With that being said, the latest episode has some premier Star Wars goodness.
Okay.
And I am willing to offer on the show, if you want timestamps, shoot me a text and I will send you the one scene that I think will be worth your time. Because if nothing else, The Acolyte, I haven't come around on the show. I'm still in John's thing of like, you probably, if you haven't started, you're good. Maybe I'm kind of waiting for the end and hoping the ending is so fucking good, but I don't think it is because I think they chose the wrong main characters. there's side characters that I'm like, that's the main character. Like the show is called Acolyte. Can it be called First Sith in a While? Because that show has meat on the bones for me. And it could be any gender, any color, but that character, I wish you almost like injected that character as your main character. Also, real quick, I'm starting to get really fucking annoyed at Disney because all this bullshit
now
about, touche. All this bullshit about like the Sith. Have we ever seen a Sith Master broad? Just guys are like Breaking Bad. Like you talk about diversity, and it's like we now have two dark apprentices and 0 bitches in a mask. I just want to see a badass in a mask because, like, that's a Sith thing.
You know what's really interesting about this, Charlie? And you said when you started this segment, you said you have an ability to say no to the things that hurt you. But the reason I have the ability to say no is, and I think we're actually a little bit on the same plane here. I don't love Star Wars. I don't love it. And I don't think you love it either.
I love Empire. Like everything else.
Well, yeah, so do I. I don't love Star Wars. So if you're going to start putting out stuff that's not that good, and there is so much to watch, it's overwhelming. I only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
I have to watch the Mets every night. That's 2.5 hours right there. Right? Yeah. Like I have to do other things. I have to go to work. I have to pick and choose my battles. And if I had to choose between the two mediums, I'm going to choose film over TV. That's just who I am. So if I'm like, I have 2.5 hours to spend. Am I going to go to the movies and see something that may not be good, but it's still a film? Or am I going to sit at home, watch 2 episodes of stories about characters I really don't care about that I may just end up leaving behind anyway? I'm going to go see the film because it's self-contained. It's easier for me to digest that and say, I love that. I can talk about it. Or that didn't work. That's okay. I never have to see it again. I can move on.
Yeah.
But if there's a character that or property that I absolutely love, you're going to suck me in. But I don't love that enough to put myself through the pain. Now, will I go watch the next season of Mandalorian? I will, even though I thought the last season was some of the worst TV I've ever seen in my life. It was awful. But I'll watch it because the first season and the first season and a half were so good, I'm willing to give it another shot.
Build equity. Willing.
Yes,
they have
something
built
with me. Correct.
Equity. Now, what's very interesting is to piggyback off of your point, because you're absolutely right. I've had the conversation before. I'm almost jealous of people who are super fans of Star Wars. Because, like, I wish I could justify, like, needing lightsabers in my life. Like, I have a Mace Windu one that John gave me, like, as a hand-me-down. I'm like, I'm done lightsaber collecting because it's purple and badass. What's very funny, though, is I tend to be more committed to characters in Star Wars. So, like, if they did another Han Solo movie, not that the first one blew me out of my socks, I'm like, but I love Han Solo.
Is it a movie, Charlie? Are they making a movie? I'll go see that.
That's a good point, too, because there's, like, a lot of asking me for 8 hours is starting to get rude.
And you're like me, too. I think you like to go to theaters, and so do I. I am such a proponent of the theatrical experience. You put me in a Dolby theater, you put me in an IMAX theater, you blast that sound into my ears. The screen is freaking humongous. I'm in, even if the movie sucks. There's something about that experience that, as big as these TVs get, and I can put on my noise canceling headphones now a lot because Allison got them for me because she's trying to sleep and I'm trying to watch TV at 11 o'clock at night. So I put on my headphones, and the sound mixing on those things is fucking incredible. Don't get me wrong. But
unbelievable.
It's not a movie theater. It's not a movie theater. So if you want to give me a 2.5 hour, 3 hour, or now 3.5 hour Star Wars movies, because all movies are fucking long now, I'll go. I'm paying my AMC stubs. I'll go.
Yeah. Can I tell you my toxic
8 hours? I don't know. It's not the same thing.
Here's my toxic trait. If your 8 hours are justified, and which is based on my opinion in the moment, you have a better chance of losing me in 8 than if you make a bad trilogy. Because if Acolyte was written more tightly and it was a 3-part, 3/6, every 2 years I'm watching an Acolyte picture, I'm much more likely to be like, I didn't fucking like Acolyte 1 and 2, but like, let's see if they finish well. This moving to television worked for someone like Din Djarin. It worked for Mandalorian because it was proper episodic television. I could have watched that in one fucking gigantic sick Saturday where like I just didn't move from my couch, or I could have watched that over the course of 6 months and I would have gotten the same sort of experience because it was such joyful storytelling. A lot of the shit feels like it's TV because they feel like no one will buy a movie ticket, which I'm like, well, but like it's because of you though. It's because you're not putting shit that I need to see. I'm able to watch it on Disney Plus. Force me to go watch a Mandalorian movie. Like that's what I would do right now if I was in charge. I'm like, who likes what? Fuck Ahsoka season 2, Ahsoka the movie, Din Djarin the movie. Fucking even if it's just a piece of a larger story.
Right. And the other thing, too, with TV, like I said, it's so oversaturated that I really need to pick my spots, right? So we've got Dragon, which you got to watch. You've got to watch The Boys. The Bear is the best show on TV. That just dropped.
Back today, I think.
Yeah, but I think they made a little bit of a mistake. They've dropped all of them at once. I don't like that. I like a weekly. I like a weekly.
Wait.
Or maybe two at a time because they're shorter. That would be okay, too. But that just dropped. I'm watching the Presumed Innocent on Apple TV Plus with Jake Gyllenhaal, the remake of the Harrison Ford movie. This show is freaking awesome. It's so good. You know why? Because it is TV that is made for adults. It's just a adult drama. They don't have them anymore. And we're going to talk about the Bikeriders. Another reason why the Bikeriders are so good is because it's a movie made for like 30, 40, and 50-year-olds. What about us, man? This is the kind of stuff that they used to make all the time and made all the money.
When's it going to be our time?
These little TikTok bastards have ruined everything.
They really have.
They ruined everything.
Before we get into the TikTok bastards, let's pay a couple bills. Unlike those TikTok bastards that'll literally promote scam after scam, dick pill after dick pill. No. We're going to bring you only the good. Today, we are once again brought to you by Sergeant Finesse Gaming. He still spends occasional time on Facebook. I see him pop up, but most of his time is spent on Kick. Amazing gaming content. An actual former soldier served our country. Now he fights for our country virtually in games like Call of Duty, but don't think he's a one-trick pony. He hops on Sims sometimes. He's hopping on all sorts of MMORPGs. When the Sergeant's on deck, we do one thing and one thing only. We salute, son. Sergeant Finesse Gaming. Check them out today. We are also brought to you by one of our absolute favorite bands, and by our, I mean me and John and Casey, all three of us, and that, of course, is Bad Mary. You heard them there in the intro. We're going to see their brand new music video at the end of the show. If you're wondering where else you can catch their act, you can follow them at Bad Mary Band across all social media platforms. Support them financially over on patreon.com/badmary. You can stay up to date, badmary.com for merch and upcoming performances. But my favorite part, Casey, their entire discography is available on every single music streaming service. You probably fucking pay for it anyway. Listen to some Bad Mary today. Casey.
Yes, sir.
You alluded to it. Let's hop into it and bury no leads. We're here to talk about, without having any intercourse in it, one of the most adult films of the year. I left this film feeling like the young 13-year-old Charlie who is reading his first film studies book and trying to analyze and overanalyze this flick. Before we jump into opinions, this film saw Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, and Tom Hardy come together, and we can only be described as an actor's tour de force. This is a fiction based on real interviews and a photo book by Danny Lyon, who was a member of the club for, believe it or not, a year. But something I found incredibly interesting before we dive into all of it, even though this used real names and locations and it loosely followed the timeline of the stories from the photo book, this isn't a work of fiction. This was inspired by events using real people, and then they just kind of made a movie, and we'll get into the inner workings of that movie in a second. But the Vandals, the biker club that we're talking about in the film, that's not even the real name of the biker club. They made sure to sprinkle in enough fake to, I think, help elevate the real. Let's just jump right into it. Initial thoughts. Casey, before you sat down with your tub of popcorn and your most delicious beverage, when you first saw this trailer, what'd you think immediately? What were you expecting? I'm not a trailer guy anymore, so I kind of went in based on the poster and the talent. What did that trailer kind of tell you?
Hell yes, let's go.
That's
sign
the
me
best
up for
way
this.
for a trailer to work.
Why do I need to wait so long for this to come out? And it was supposed to be released, I think, at the end of last year. It got pushed, which was very depressing. So I had to wait and wait and wait. But it was, in my opinion, worth every minute that I waited for it. I absolutely loved this flick. I really, really did. I thought, I mean, where do I begin? I thought the performances were incredible. I thought this was Tom Hardy's best performance probably since like Bronson, maybe. I thought he was that good, or maybe Dunkirk.
He is a generational talent.
Yes.
Who apparently will not get his flowers until he's left the mortal coil. All I read about this guy is criticism. Yep. I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know if that he keeps his private life private. I don't know if he's like a fucking borderline gender fluid just dreamboat. Like to you lose yourself in a Tom Hardy performance in a way that people used to describe Brando. Yes. Right? Like the Brando was always a legend to me that I couldn't really see. By the time I was able to enjoy Brando's performances, everyone took his magic sauce. So there was a bunch of fake Brandos that showed his tricks, right? I think, at least in my opinion, like Brando's the mold in which you start with, and then you figure out who you are. I see Brando in John Leguizamo performances. I see Brando in De Niro performances. I see Brando in Tom Hardy performances. I, of course, saw a shit ton in Val Kilmer performances. I see a taste of it in Tom Hanks. I see it, that glow that Brando was able to kind of manifest, at least in Godfather's the only time I saw Brando unlock that of like a loving grandfather. Like that glow, I think, is the not Tom Hardy, but Tom Hanks magic. And I think when his bodies of work are done, when he hangs it up, I think Tom Hardy is a guy who will be discussed in film studies of like, well, why this? Why that? Why are his hands here? Why are his shoulders like that? Why did he raise an eyebrow here? The fucking guy is, in my opinion, undeniable. Except I look around and every reviewer is like, another silly accent? Like,
another accent.
You fucks. If you listen to the tapes of which this movie took inspiration from, these interviews, there used to be regional accents. And yeah they're a little fucking silly because America's a silly made-up place. And the fact that they gave shit to Jodie Comer, and I'm probably saying her name wrong, but Jodie Comer, thank you. Jodie sounds exactly like her. Like it's Kathy, the character she's based on.
Yes. I think here's the thing with Hardy. I think people, he is one of those actors that makes bold choices and is unafraid to do so. I think there are a lot of actors who play things safe. There are a lot of actors who play themselves and just different variations of themselves. Tom doesn't do that. He's always willing to do something different and interesting that might not work, but that's okay because he's taking a shot. Like the only reason why the Venom movies are enjoyable, in my opinion, is because he's hilarious. And I went into it and I was like, do I really need this movie? And I was like, this guy is having the time of his life. And he loves it. And he has sucked me into this stupid, ridiculous world because he is such a presence. Main Hollywood actors don't do movies like Bronson. They don't do it. When he's playing Bane, everyone talks about the accent and being muffled and everything. He made a choice. He gave it a fucking shot. He didn't play it safe. He went for it. I think that is so commendable. Even in the movies that aren't very good, like his Capone movie, it's not very good. He gave it a shot. He tried.
Is
His
magnificent
performance
in
in
that,
Dunkirk, he is so cool, and you never see his face the whole time. He's just in a plane until finally at the end, spoiler alert, he gets off the plane, it blows up, and he's just walking. He is just so
just
cool.
like an 80s action movie.
Oh,
now there
man.
is. Do you think there's a sprinkling of like resentment that anyone could be so
cool,
seemingly legitimate fucking cool? Like you're married to one of the most spectacular people I've ever been briefly introduced to. I was able to watch the Super Bowl with her, had a couple interactions with her, and I could see right away. I'm like, you two are kind of cut for each other. You guys are this perfect. If she left you for Tom Hardy, I'd be like, yeah, fucking no shit. Like, no shit, it's Tom Hardy.
I'd be like,
if you left her for Tom Hardy, I'd be like, yeah, Casey's gay now. Well, it's Tom Hardy. There is a cool factor to him that is so legitimate. Like, you talk about people who like the people who try to act cool. Like, again, we kind of mocked them earlier. Sorry, TikTokers. But there is this like illusion of cool, and we'll kind of transition to him shortly. But some people are convinced that Austin Butler is always putting on a performance of cool guy. But the fact that it comes so naturally to Tom Hardy, do you think it's just people being like, fuck him? He probably, like, because we saw it, right? We saw it. So we also know he's packing heat. So it's like just rude that he's just like also willing to be like, oh my God. Like, he just fucking doesn't feel the need to ever be performative in his real life. And maybe that's the performance. Maybe it turned out he's three midgets stacked, but still.
I don't know if there's a jealousy factor, Charlie. I really don't know. I think
just
people are just
fucking
confused.
Stupid.
I think they're confused by him. I don't think they get it. I don't think this. I don't want to blame the generation. I really don't want to do that. I'm not that old. Like I'm not John's age. You know what I'm saying?
Shit.
Yeah,
Boom.
that's right.
We changed our demographic. But 18 to 40, bitch.
I don't know. There's just for some reason people just don't connect with him, and I think he has this old school movie star quality that I don't think is connecting, and I think it will. I think he's going to eventually take on a part. I think he'll take on something, whether it's like, I don't know, maybe he'll be in like, if Tarantino ever makes that his last movie, maybe he'll be in that. Like, he'd be awesome in that world. You know what I mean? He's going to have that performance where everyone goes, oh, now I get it.
I wonder if it's just going to be a thing where it waits till he's older. Maybe it's 80-year-old Tom Hardy that finally everyone's like, oh, fuck. Everything he did was gangbusters. Like you said it perfectly. Even the stuff that's not so good surrounding it, he is great in Capone. He's great in Capone. That script didn't allow for that movie to be more than fine. But he's excellent. Right. Now let's move over to another guy who gets a lot of criticism for his accents. Very much, I loved seeing them together because I'm like, there's no way this motherfucker wasn't inspired by Tom. Austin Butler has fully climbed out of the Elvis hole he put himself in for me. Elvis is an example of a film. I get why people love it. For me, I see all the work. And I hate being confronted with someone who made it, who had the same problem as me. You know, my 10 minutes trying to be a performer, the worst part about me was like, you saw the work. It's why the closest I ever fucking got, I fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line, because it's like when it's that manufactured, one misstep and you're like, I've lost all of it. The Elvis movie, which I think is a fine film, I think it's good. He was one misstep away from blowing up the entire picture around him. And he held on to it, white-knuckled his way through that 2.5-hour runtime. But that movie frustrated me because I'm like, man, couldn't they have taken another month for this guy to be comfortable? He's uncomfortable that whole movie.
Man,
from my point of view.
That's really interesting. I will respectfully disagree.
Please do.
Thought he was stupendous in that. Now I'm coming from it from a little bit of a it's a little bias, a little bit, because I'm probably, from the people you know, I'm probably the biggest Elvis fan you know. And I'm young for, to be 38, about to be 30 fucking 9, but to
It's not
be
that
that
bad.
big of an Elvis fan at a younger age bracket is odd now. And I am a huge Elvis fan. I just went to Memphis for the second time over the summer. I went to Graceland. It was one of the best days of my life. I love him. So when this movie came out, I was terrified. I was like, oh no, don't do this to my guy. Like we've seen caricatures, we've seen all this kind of different stuff. Don't do this to my guy. And I sat there in awe. I thought at times I was watching the King. I thought he was that good. And I think the thing that kind of you pushed up against of seeing the work, I saw a little bit of it too, but I was so impressed by it that I
You're
didn't
like,
care.
I respect the fuck out of it.
I did.
Home
I thought
run,
it was
Austin.
unbelievable. I don't think anyone could have done that.
I get that. And I think that's incredibly fair. I think it's incredibly fair. And I think what I love about that is, regardless of how you felt about Elvis, you left being like, oh, this motherfucker's made now. Like now it's not a question of can Austin Butler like headline something. It's like, oh, what's fucking next? What's next? So for him to kind of work with this talent pool seems so natural. And for him to still be able to kind of smolder on fucking on screens worldwide was still like, oh, fuck this motherfucker.
Right, and then look what he's
able to look up.
He went from Elvis, he took a hard fucking pivot to Dune 2. Those two guys couldn't be any different, but he was still so freaking cool. And now he gets to play this like cool, understated character. Yeah. So even though he still has that persona of like, I'm just fucking cool. But look at those three major roles. Elvis, he has to be huge. Okay, huge, and embodying one of the most famous people in the history of the world. Then he has to play this fucking maniac, knife-licking lunatic.
Like Worm Man.
Yeah. Then he just has to play this early 60s, I just want to ride my bike. Different guys. It's unbelievable.
Also, you talk about like, I feel like the actor also is like, I just want to have something that's not complicated. Give me like 45 lines for the entire 2-hour runtime. With that being said, I think you and I can agree. You and I had a brief conversation. I actually reached out to you before I knew you were going to do this episode because I wanted to talk to someone about Bikeriders, ironically. Dude, Jody comes in and she handed her shit to Tom and Austin. And she's like, you fucking boys can relax.
Yeah,
Mama got this. When you talk about a performer who sits in every scene next to a potential all-time great and outshines them scene after scene, moment after moment, going back to and I didn't mean it as an insult to Austin. It is a little inside baseball to even like look for the work.
Sure.
Jody was lost in Kathy. The only person I saw on that screen was the character of Kathy. And to learn after the fact, in real life and in versions of the script, Kathy has 3 kids that are fully removed from the film. So she has this baggage of being a mom informing every decision that they were able to remove, and the performance loses nothing.
This
She
movie does not work without her. I've read some criticisms of it, and people either feel that the accent didn't work for them, they thought it was too much. Okay, fine. I can't. If you have a personal preference, there's nothing.
If you're
There's
just
nothing I
fucking
can
gonna be
do.
wrong about some shit,
Right,
go
it is
ahead,
what
I
it is.
guess.
But then
Yeah.
people had a problem with the framework. They were like, "Well, it's not really plot driven. It's like it's like the narrator." I'm like, "Yeah, but if you take this film and you take her, not, you can't take the character out of it because she's still in the movie, right? So if she's just his wife who's kind of like, I don't want you to ride anymore, but you don't get her perspective, then it just becomes like every other motorcycle or guy movie we've ever seen. And it's guys being cool who refuse to listen to the rules, and there's no other side. The other side, we got to see. The beautiful thing about this is that this film showed you the cool side of being in a biker gang, and it showed you the nasty side of it. But normally you see the nasty side and you're like, oh, do I like that or no? I don't know. This time they showed you the nasty side, and they showed you someone on the inside, how it affects them and how it affects a female character, which I think we never see. It
No,
was
the
fascinating.
the only version of that we ever see is like the guy's girl, which I've never, like in my personal life, I've never met one. I've never actually met a girl who's like, I'm just a guy with boobs, including my friends who have transitioned from one gender to the next. I'm still like, this fucking guy was always acting like
basically the archetype is just anybody's from West Side.
Yes, exactly. It's what a great fucking pull. What a great reference. For me, I think the true criticism of this film comes from the same place. People thought they were going to go see a Sons of Anarchy movie. And instead, this movie plays like an apology for the over-the-top bullshit of biker movies that came before it. Now, did they position themselves beautifully in a unique place? Absolutely, in my opinion. Once you remove the people that just wanted this to be like Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, they're going to drink beers and shoot guys they disagree with because they're so fucking cool. Instead, this movie said, hey, this 19-year-old kid played by Austin Butler is going to date a 25-year-old for 3 months and marry her. It's going to be her third fucking husband. So this broad has just been trying to like live a comfortable life her whole life, and not one fucking guy until Benny shows up, who in real life they were together until Benny passed away, had a secret son together. Little Benny Jr. showed up at the premiere, was like, by the way, this movie's kind of about my dad. The cutest shit ever is that fact that he was just like, hey, what's up? My dad was the guy from the photos. This character coming from a place of in the early to mid 60s, a bunch of guys, and I can understand the mortality of it all, people having conflicting feelings about, right up my fucking alley, because I am lost in my real life journey, so I need movies like this to like pat me on the back, say it's gonna be okay. This is a bunch of guys who in the 50s didn't fit in, right? They never fit in with their collars buttoned all the way to the top. This is a story that Tom Hardy's character starts a gang because he watches a fucking movie about a biker gang.
He watches Brando, which is amazing.
Wait a minute. Maybe I could. Oh, that sounds fucking cool as shit. Be like, what are you?
I just want to hang with my boys.
Be like, names.
That's it.
They just. This is the conflict of 50s idealism and the grim reality of the 70s, like the post-war 70s. This is a story about a bunch of men who, despite their wives, despite their kids, they need a sense of belonging. This is a story about a bunch of men who love their life. They could like their job. They could love their wife. They could love their fucking kids. But they need friends. They need a community. So they fucking build it. And then what happens when you have a community and the world around you now changes? right? Because then in the 60s, you have a bunch of guys coming back from war who now it's not about a sense of community. It's they're so fucking mad. They're so goddamn fucking angry. And that male rage that nowadays is so unpopular to even acknowledge. There are people in their 20s who are being canceled on YouTube because in a secretly recorded message with a significant other says, I want to bash your fucking head in. I'm not saying that that's good behavior, but I'm saying to pretend like heaven to Murgatroyd, why would a man ever want to punch another person? Be like, because fucking people are the worst.
Yeah.
And then if you add in these kids who came up in the 60s, come the fucking 70s, they're mad at nothing. They're mad because their dad hit them and because their mom would fucking paddle them because the dad would smack
no money,
her
they've
around.
Got nothing to do. Yeah, and then he tries to help her and then she gets mad at him. It's a whole cycle. So you're right. Go ahead.
The externalization of rage, what that looks like when just a bunch of people who probably need a fucking deep hug, right? There's a huge plot point about men crying in this movie. And literally the two things that a main character cries about out of context of the film are a little silly to like never cry unless the worst thing happens, and a little bit silly if you get one of your toys taken away. Like those are kind of two not symmetrical things. One has real weight, one shouldn't. And they are able to, in 2 hours, put you, the viewer, if you're willing to accept anything beyond like bikes and fucking bitches and guns are cool. If you're willing to accept it, you should leave the movie being informed maybe about what your needs are, being informed maybe about what you want. I think the notion of wants, haves, and needs being so surrounded by this masculine embrace, take all the masculine shit you love and then use that to talk about personal freedom and what that means.
Right.
My God, what a perfect vehicle.
And then if you look at the two main male antagonists, or protagonists, I should say, look at how they deal with things completely differently, right? When things get really hard, Tom Hardy's character wants to stay ingrained in what he's doing. This is where I need to be. This is what I want. I want to give this to you. And what is Benny's response? I don't want that, man. I'm not the guy. It's not what I want. I know what I want. I just want to sit here and I want to ride with my boys. And then when things get really hard, he's like, deuces, I'm out. He doesn't have the stomach for that kind of life. So you're seeing this really interesting dichotomy of these two guys got in the group for the same reason, but then as it progressed and as it progressed and as it progressed, they drift apart a little bit because they actually want a little bit of different things and they don't know how to cope with it. It's real life. It's fucking beautiful.
It's so beautiful is the right word, right? Because the idea of I know this is what I want and I love you. So here, I'm going to give you the keys to a joyful life. Put a baby in your wife, run the club, we'll ride till we die. That notion of like, hey man, I know what's best for you, being one of the factors that shoves someone out of your life is the most understandable shit in cinema in the last decade. Mm-hmm. There is not a character in this fucking movie that you won't be able. Let me rephrase that. There's no less than 4 characters in this movie that every single person will relate to somehow. Even if they're a secondary, third, or fourth tier character. Fucking homeboy from Walking Dead shows up with some of the worst fake teeth I've ever fucking seen. And his character I identify with. Like that character, I'm like, This
I
motherfucker
love
came
that
to
guy.
start some shit, and he fell in love with are you?
Yeah, these
So
guys are
we
cool.
just
I
had
just want to stay here.
a
Oh my
poker
god!
night.
And
We
his,
just
yeah,
had a
I know,
poker
but his.
night, and you first.
I was just gonna say his. What he ends up doing in his life for a job might be the greatest
Yes,
like meta motorcycle movie joke I've ever seen. I literally
it
laughed out loud, and
is.
people are like, "I don't.
I
What are you laughing at?"
wanted
I'm like, "Are you
I
serious? This is the
wanted to
funniest
hug it.
thing I've ever seen in my life."
I wanted to hug whoever's idea it was,
I know.
whoever fucking cat it was in cat. I'm like, you beautiful son of a bitch. Also, anytime you make someone who like girls fawn over ugly as shit, I'm like, hell
Yeah,
yeah.
and he was
But
ugly, boy.
oh, they
Woo.
uggled that motherfucker up. But what I loved about that though was like I had a slice of that relatively recently. We had a poker game recently, and I met a friend of you and John's, who I consider them a friend. Motherfucker, the first time I met him was at a barbecue like 2 weeks before the game, and he drove to the city to his favorite pizza place to bring back delicious ice cold fucking pizza. And then for our poker game, brought us like a full Italian Sunday dinner.
Oh, that was
Brought us all sorts of meats, all sorts. What a fucking stud! But like that person shows up in this movie every seventh scene, and you want to go bullshit. Except I have one now. Like I have a friend I can't invite to a poker game without being like, "Would you like me to make you a delicious sandwich that my mother
Yeah, I
told me to
know.
make?"
Or you just
I'm like,
invite him to make sure that he will be providing the food. You know that now.
That's true.
So you're
He's
good.
like a built-in caterer, that gorgeous, gorgeous Italian monster. Ultimately, what I find troubling, and the reason I wanted to have the conversation about TV, are general audiences no longer shopping for movies that are by and large made for 28 to 68-year-olds to be able to kind of have a one-sided conversation about masculinity without shame, without judgment, and also without selling an agenda, right? The beautiful thing about this, and I don't want it to get lost, the Kathy character serves, this brilliant performance serves to inform all of this. Like she is a character who is just as involved with wants versus needs versus haves. The reality of the time kind of moving on, the reality of trying to take a square peg who's in her life and all she has available are round holes, and you find the one that fits the best. And maybe you question, like, is this the right choice? At least it's a choice. The theming of it for me was all about just rebuilding your life. Every single one of these characters, at least once, has to rebuild their life. Some characters do it 4 times. This is who I am. Nope. Rebuilt. This is who I am. Nope. Rebuilt. This is who I am. Nope. To only end up rebuilding again. That's not a conversation that is just for men, right? This movie is very much about trying to show a sensitive side to a bunch of stereotypes. At least that was my read on it. I'm like, we start at the most obvious portrayal, and you pull the camera back, and you pull the camera back, and you get more. And what's this person's soul? And you don't need monologues to do it, although we get some incredible ones. You don't need constant visual reminders about what something means, although we get it. This film is a masterwork of storytelling, but every fucking review says we're wrong. Every review says it's aimless, it's pointless, it's a day in the life that no one should care about. What would you say to? I know that's a lot I just threw at you, but I'm just trying to do a stream of conscious.
I think the problem is that general movie audiences now want eventized films. The reason to go to the movie theater has now become, am I going to see a man fly? Am I going to see things blow up? Am I going to see the world at risk? That's what has happened to movie theaters. I think the pandemic really hurt. And I think the idea of shorter form storytelling, I think the TikTokization, the Instagram storyization has killed the narrative drama because you're not getting instant gratification from things. You probably have to think a little bit too hard to understand things sometimes, like God forbid. But then things come out and you say, holy shit, how did that work? Look at Oppenheimer. That is a movie about a scientist who is grappling with, should I do this? That's what the movie's about. That's it. That's what the movie's about. It's over 3 hours long. It has, I mean, probably one of the most incredible 20-minute sequences that we've seen in film in maybe ever. That worked. So I think there's a possibility that people want it. They just don't know that they want it. They want to sit at home. They want to watch TV. They want to be on their phones. They don't want to sit and have to think about these things. And I think it's really sad. It's really, really sad.
And what bums me out, yeah, no, and again, that's the only opinion that matters tonight. The real tragedy of Bikeriders is I'm not sure it has the ability to pick up momentum
Probably not
authentically on streaming. Because what this would have been 20 years ago, this would have been like, hey guys, I got the Laserdisc of Bikeriders.
Yeah.
Come by. Because I do think the minute that you pick up your phone in Bikeriders, you're going to miss some magic that will inform the rest. So I have an interesting question to ask you, just because you did kind of set the stage beautifully for it. Would this have worked better as a miniseries? If this was HBO, you make it a 4-hour version, you cut it into 4 parts across 4 Sundays. Are we then talking about one of the greatest miniseries? And as everyone, instead of questioning accents, is everyone going like, can you fucking believe the commitment? Would there be a docu-series to follow it to be like, listen to the tapes, watch the scene, holy shit. Is this an example of maybe the wrong choice in the other direction? Ahsoka should have been a movie. Maybe Bikeriders should have been a series. I don't know that I believe one way or the other, but I do think it is something I would really love what your gut reaction is, kind of knowing how it's been received, knowing what you felt about it, now knowing what I felt about it. Where would you land on that?
You might be right. This might have been a vehicle for that, but at the end of the day, I'm happy they did it this way because I think it works.
I'm going to take a page out of my brother's book, and I'm going to, for once, prioritize my feelings about something. This is a movie that I will absolutely be getting a physical copy of.
Me too.
And this is a yearly watch for me. This is kind of I'm a little bit, I get lost in the shuffle of life a lot. Post-pandemic, I feel like it's happened more than ever. So I kind of need places to anchor. And this movie served as an anchor. It was kind of, to me, my big takeaway was like, rebuilding's fucking not only fine, it's mandatory. And that's something that I do occasionally need to fucking hear. Because I do think if I was a product of the 50s, 60s, I'd probably be on a bike somewhere making someone uncomfortable at a bar. Like, that is probably who I was supposed to be, but like with more show tunes playing. Like, it's a weird dichotomy that I live in. Like, imagine like I bring the whole biker gang to like, you're a good man, Charlie Brown. I'm like, this fucking rips. You tell him, Sally.
You're always coming into the bar snapping your fingers.
I'm basically I'm the West Side equivalent of a biker.
That's my second West Side reference today.
I mean, I think you gotta fucking do it now. If you mention it one more time this week, you must be in it.
Well, I
Casey,
can actually, real quick, because I do want to shout out one of the performers we didn't talk about in the film, and that's Mike Feist, who plays the interviewer, essentially the stand-in for the guy who did the interviews. And that guy is on a fucking heater right now, okay? Because he was in this. He was in what is so far my favorite movie of the year, Challengers. And he was in West Side again. Yeah. Have you seen Challengers yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I've heard nothing but good things.
Holy shit. It blew me away. I've seen it twice. I loved it even more the second time. I cannot recommend it enough. It's not a movie that's making any money. It is getting some buzz. But let me tell you, this movie fucking rips. It is so good. It is so exciting. And dare I say, this is crazy, I think it might be the best sports movie in the last 20 years.
Wow. And you fucking know, so until our Mets movie comes out, that's high fucking praise.
It's fucking awesome. So that's a little plug for that film.
Next time you're on the show, we're going to go through, you got to come back because this was a blast. I'm sure John will be fucking too good for me on another occasion. But thank you so much for coming in, man. As always, you're absolutely tremendous. I love talking movies. Again, unsolicited. You were my first reach out for Bikeriders. And I want to talk to you about everything that's come out. I'm definitely going to annoy you once I get around to Challengers.
Do you think John goes to rehearsal for Newsies in a Newsy hat?
Yeah.
In his Newsy hat?
Yeah.
Do you think like he walks on stage and he's like, hey, you little youngins, I'm playing Christian Bale now. Like, do you think like he does that?
I think John walks into that theater wearing a Newsies cap, takes it off, is handed a different Newsy, like a Smithtown Theater Newsies cap. And then when he gets on stage, there's a third Newsies style cap for Pulitzer.
He's like the Doug closet where like it's all the same outfit.
100%. There's just slight variations. And I do think when people are learning stage direction, he shows everybody he's also memorized it just in case he's needed. I would argue you, Casey, you are a 4-tool player. John calls himself a 12-tool player because he can do his shit, someone else's shit, and most of someone else's shit.
Or just a tool. But who's counting?
That's my favorite. He's my favorite, but yeah, probably. Casey, there's only one way that we end each and every episode of USComicsCast. I'm going to tell the beautiful people before we cut to that awesome new music video from Bad Mary, but I need you to kind of show them how it is. So I need you to, for all the people watching the visual version, I need you to kind of pantomime the actions. You ready for me, pal?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. First, you got to turn the volume up. Then you got to tune Bad Mary in, open up the window wide, and scream out into the night sky, save me, Space Girl. We out.
across